The best 48 anglers in the world are here in Richmond, competing for $1.5 million. Head-to-head, angler against angler. Who will shake up the bracket with a big upset? Will Angler of the Year Dan Moorhead continue his incredible run? Kevin Van Dam and Clark Wendlandt are both looking for their first FLW championship. Hank Parker joins us to preview the top contenders starting right now on FLW Outdoors. Hello everyone and welcome to FLW Outdoors. I'm Carlton Wing with Hank Parker and Taylor Carr, and all year long we've been talking about the road to Richmond. Gentlemen, we're finally here.
$1.5 million, and Hank, somebody's going to walk away with a check for $500,000 for winning this event.
You know, that's a big deal, but you know what I like more than the winner with $500,000? It's elevated this whole sport to a new level. There's a lot of media looking at bass tournaments today because of that $500,000. It's never looked at as before. So this has really brought the sport up, and it's a very exciting tournament.
I guarantee you, after somebody wins that check for $500,000, a lot of parents are going to go out and buy some fishing rods for their kids. It's going to be a big deal. Let's talk about this tournament, though. Our anglers all year long have been facing situations around the spawn, pre, on, or post, but got a different situation here on the James River.
I've found throughout my whole fishing career that September in the southeast is the hardest time of year to fish. So here they are on the James River, a tidal river, a lot to contend with what I call the dog days in September. It's going to be a tough event, but you know, most of the anglers that I've talked to, they like for a big championship tournament to be on tough water, so they've got what they've asked for.
Hank, can it be won on one spot?
I don't think so. If you look at the past tournaments that have been here, there's been a few that have, but I think the tide plays such a key role in this whole deal that I think a lot of moving is going to be necessary to keep up with that tide to win this event.
And there is only one Virginian in this tournament. It's John Cruz. He's 25 years old, but he knows this river well. Let's hear from John Cruz now on the James River.
2-pounder, I'll take him.
Virginia's John Cruz is coming off his second season as an FLW pro, a year in which he made his first top 10, an impressive third place finish at Lake Murray. Cruz is only 25, but he knows the James River. His hometown of Jetersville is just up the road, and John's had as much practice time as any of the 48 pros who are seeking the biggest championship payday in fishing history.
Well, the James River is a major tributary into the Chesapeake Bay, and there's over 60 miles of fishable water, and it's a tidal fishery, meaning that the water flows in from the ocean and then returns to the ocean. And the tidal swing is about 2.5 to 3 feet, depending on the wind and so forth. What happens is that these fish get really shallow and they stay there, and that's where most of these anglers are going to catch their fish. And one of the tributaries that they're going to catch most of their fish in is the Appomattox. In the Appomattox River, a lot of the banks look like we have right here. There's lots of wood and laydowns that are in the water, and the anglers are going to be fishing that wood on high and low tide. And what they're going to be using are worms, just like this nori bug made by Konami. And they're also going to be using a lot of small crankbaits and small spinner baits to catch fish, deflecting those baits off of the wood. The fish react and eat those baits. So look for a lot of shallow fish to be caught in the Appomattox on wood. Another area that may play a role in this tournament is the mouth of Ward's Creek. That whole area of the river has lots of cypress trees, and in that area of the river is where Rick Clunn formerly won a Bassmasters Classic. Clunn is my competition in the first round of the tournament. He may use a former tactic of catching fish on a square lip crankbait like this lure Jensen. So it could be possible that a lot of big fish could be caught in that area of the river on cypress trees. An area that I thought could be key in my tournament plan was the upper Chickahominy River. There's lots of lily pads. A lot of guys catch big fish on frogs and flipping worms into the lily pads and across the lily pads. It's a place that there are a lot of big fish, and you can also catch numbers there too. So there could be some big stringers coming out of the upper Chickahominy River. One of the days of practice, I caught a 4.5-pound largemouth on this black and blue jig in heavy laydown cover. What I mean by laydown cover is heavy logs that get crossed up, and it's hard to get any other bait in there. And that's one of the tactics that the pros are going to be using in areas such as Ward's Creek, Powell's Creek, and Heron Creek. And they're going to be doing that targeting bigger fish, which is what I'm going to be doing with that tactic myself. So that could be a tactic used by the pros here to catch bigger fish. There are numerous docks on the James River, such as this one right here, and that is going to be an area where a lot of people are going to catch fish. Now you can catch big fish and numbers of fish off of docks, but there's so many docks, it's hard to differentiate which ones are the good ones and which ones aren't. So guys are gonna have to fish a lot of docks before they figure out the ones that are holding fish. And that is a pattern that I'm gonna plan on fishing some docks during the day. Now, I've just discussed some of the tactics that the pros, including myself, are gonna be using to try to win this tournament. And the difference between winning this tournament and coming in second is gonna be catching a couple big fish each day and backing it up with some good fish. So I'm gonna try to use my local knowledge to an advantage and win this tournament and take home $500,000.
Your Banana Boat outdoor conditions call for beautiful weather all week long here on the James River under mostly sunny skies. Highs in the 70s and working themselves up to the 80s by Championship Day. The lows from the 50s to the 60s. Your UV index will start at a 1 on day 1 and by tournament's end will be up to a 3. We've got an exciting show coming up. Hank, you fish with 3 of the top contenders in this tournament.
I'm telling you, not 3 top contenders in this tournament, 3 of the hottest fishermen in all of the world, and Clark Wendlandt, Dan Moorhead, and Kevin Van Dam. And all 3 have a little different strategy. It's going to be interesting to watch.
Are they all catching fish?
Well, 2 of the 3 are, I know. So, but you know, that doesn't faze these guys. They may not even be on fish at all going in the tournament and catch a huge stringer. We see it over and over again. So I don't know that being on fish is really important.
Could someone unknown win this event, Hank?
Well, everybody here has worked hard to qualify, and there's no person here that's not qualified to win this tournament. So somebody that we've never even talked about could easily come up and win this event.
Well, we will begin our preview with the contenders in this big FLW Tour Championship. It's coming up when FLW Outdoors returns.
Here's this week's Field and Stream trivia question. Who are the only 2 qualifiers in this year's championship field who have won the title before? Here's a hint. One of them is a recent champion. Here's your Field and Stream trivia answer. The only 2 finalists who have won the title before, John Sappington, who won in 2002, and Dion Hibden, who won in 2000, and they're matched against each other in the first round this year.
Well, here we are. You fished all year. This is the big event, $500,000 on the line. James River. I know you've been here practicing. You're already excited. You can't wait. Got all the fish staked out. What's the deal?
I don't know if I got them all staked out, but yeah, I tell you what, it's amazing how much money we're fishing for. I'm more excited about this tournament just because what's at stake. And sport's come a long way. I look forward to the tournament.
All you got to do is catch fish. That's the whole key.
You got to catch fish. You might need one 12-incher to advance, and you may need 15 pounds. Who knows?
Well, let's see what it takes today, and let's figure out this James River.
Sounds great.
You know, this whole thing, every one of these islands you see with the trees growing on them, with the exception of maybe 1 or 2, are really barges that they brought in here. It's kind of a barge graveyard that dates all the way back to the Civil War. But I'd like to find some of those bass for you that have been here since the Civil War.
I would love to see that too. Yeah, I always think it's really interesting going to these places like this and Potomac where you see all those barges that you see and you know how much history's here. It's pretty incredible. Well, it's kind of interesting. I'm fishing against David Walker in the first round. I walked out of my hotel this morning. And I guess he hadn't been here, I don't know, but the first person I look at this morning is his boat parked right next to mine. So we're staying right next to each other.
Come up here and you fish and you run in all these different, there's so much different water, different types, different cuts, different creeks, main river. Have you already kind of discerned all the structure and figured it out and know exactly what you're going to do, have your game plan put together?
I have a game, right now I've got a couple more days of practice and if I don't find anything, I've got a game plan. And if I don't find anything different, but I want to keep looking. I want to keep trying to find something better because I know there is something out here that's better. And, but if it doesn't work, then I know where I'm going to go. I know what the tide's going to be when I get there. And then if it for some reason didn't work, the good thing is is that we get to fish two days against the same guy. And so, you know, the first day you can basically just feel out your area, and you know, if he catches the biggest string in the tournament and you don't catch anything, well, you're going to be in big trouble. But you know, if you catch 5 or 6 pounds and he does too, then hopefully you've figured out at least how to catch them, and you can process that information and then go to day 2. So.
Does the reputation of the body of water have influence on the way you practice? For example, if people say, the way it was here 20 years ago when I first came here, and everybody told me this and I didn't listen. They said, you're going to catch a lot more fish out of the Chick, but you're going to get a much better grade out of the James. And I didn't listen. I stayed in the Chick, and that turned out to be true. Does that kind of talk influence you at all?
Yeah, definitely. And one thing I do in practice is it's all up to the risk reward. You know, we're fishing right now real close to the takeoff, and so it wouldn't take much to make me start shaking off fish, because it's not going to take me very long to get here.
Right.
But if I got to run 60 miles, I need to know what kind of fish are there. I need to know, you know, how many of them there are and how big they are. And you know, the area that I'm going to, the one thing I've learned is that I can catch fish that are over 2 pounds some. In my mind, I was thinking, you know, I don't know, all the bites I've had have been good ones. I don't have to have as many good bites as I do. In the days I've fished the James, I haven't done as well. So I've heard every single person that's ever talked about this place saying that, you know, you got to have the right tides to do well. You got to have the right tides, but you know, when other guys have won here, they generally figure out how to catch those fish at high tides, and so. You know, I'm going to hopefully be able to figure them out. I've got an idea, and hopefully I can just expand on that.
I've won several tournaments here, and I caught them on Rising Tide. 2 different events I caught them on Rising Tide. But it's a job. They don't bite as good. It's a little different type fishing. Of course, you've already figured all that out, I know, but.
I definitely haven't figured it all out, but at least I've got an idea. At least I hope.
Coming up on FLW Outdoors, a fast-paced highlight reel of the 2003 FLW Tour season. FLW Outdoors is brought to you by Walmart. Always low prices, always. By U.S. Bank, home of the 5-star service guarantee. By Stanley, make something great. And by EverStart batteries, more power for your money. Here's a recap of your EverStart Division champions. First from the East, Fuji Pro Wesley Strader out of Spring City, Tennessee is the division champion. In the Central, it's Jackie Davis out of Willard, Missouri winning the division, just beating Craig Powers by 6 points. In the West, it's Brent Erler out of Redlands, California. The EverStart Northern Division just completed its 3rd event, this on Lake Erie, and Vic Vadalaro is your champion out of Kent, Ohio, with a championship weight of 23 pounds, 7 ounces.
Hi, I'm Castle Pro Bobby Curtis. All bass fishermen know how important it is to prepare for the tournament, but the most important preparation you're going to do is the night before the tournament. Take 2 minutes, walk around your trailer, make sure everything is in order. Check to make sure that your hitch is properly secure, your winch strap is secure, your tires are properly inflated, your boat tie downs are secure, and your motor toter is in place. Also, you need to make sure and walk around your trailer and check that your turn signals, brake lights, and tail lights work properly. This 2 minutes will help you have a better day on the water.
Welcome back to Richmond, Virginia, and our preview of the FLW Championship, where somebody on day 4 will walk away with a check for $500,000.
That's amazing. We started off this 2003 season with the big bass of Lake Okeechobee, and now we're going to end, of course, with a big paycheck right here in Richmond. So let's take an exciting look back at that thrilling 2003 regular season.
Florida's Lake Okeechobee. It's where fishing begins every year on the FLW Tour. This year, Okeechobee promised to be more challenging. But to the best anglers in the world, it hardly mattered.
The weights will be off just a little tiny bit, but that's okay. Everybody's just raring to go. Been in hibernation for 6-7 months, and it's just good to be out here.
It sure was for Mike Sermon, the man who brought 27.6 to the scales, the 4th largest sack in Tour history, anchored by a 9-pound, 14-ounce monster. The next day, Andy Morgan weighed a fish that went 9.15, and both men cruised into the finals. That's where they met some of the coldest and windiest conditions you'll find on Okeechobee. The angler who adjusted best was Georgia's Pat Fisher, who went to the north end of the lake and concentrated on flipping to mats of floating vegetation.
Ball game, baby! Yeah!
Fisher claimed his first FLW title with Rick Couch second and Dan Moorhead third. Tour stop 2 was new water for the FLW, the vast expanse of Louisiana's Atchafalaya Basin. Tour rookie Dave Lefebvre set the qualifying pace and then kept it going on day 3. Starting off flipping a tube on light line, Lefebvre had reason to be encouraged.
Oh, they're eating it today. That is the first fish that had it that deep in 2 days.
Gary Klein had it going on a black and blue rattleback jig, and when he caught 3 keepers in 20 minutes, he took the early lead. But Paul Elias was close behind. He'd gone to shallow and nearly inaccessible water and was catching his fish on a buzz bait and a spinnerbait.
Yes, 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 yes. Thank you, Lord. Thank you. Valentine. Mwah.
Good fish.
West Virginia's Bill Chapman tried to make it close with 2 solid limits, but the veteran from Pachuta, Mississippi was too good. Elias had over 17 pounds the final day and claimed his first FLW win. Chapman was second and Lefebvre third. The next tour stop took the FLW back to South Carolina's Lake Murray for the first time in 3 years. But with water levels down 15 feet, it fished like a whole new lake, and it fished great. 85 anglers, including Chevy Pro Larry Nixon, had first day limits, and there were 20-plus pound bags everywhere.
These 5 fish weigh in at 26 pounds, 13 ounces, 26-13.
And that was just day 1's catch for Darrell Robertson. He ended up with a tour record 49.5 pounds for the first 2 days. In the finals, Larry Nixon started with a 7-pounder and went on to lead after day 3 with almost 18 pounds.
I want you to get him as soon as I get him in there. Get him, good girl. What a start. Man.
But rookie Chris Elliott from Gloucester, North Carolina, was less than 2 pounds back. And on the last day, in a steady rain, he landed 3 big keepers that weighed 14.5 pounds, and he claimed his first tour win. Stanley Mitchell was second, and John Cruz third. Arkansas's Beaver Lake and the giant paychecks of the Walmart Open are an FLW Tour tradition. 29 degrees at day 1 launch are not, but in big-time pro fishing, life's not always easy. Beaver Lake was different this year. The tournament came just before the spawn, so sight fishing was out. Crankbaits, jerkbaits, jigs, and plastic worms filled the void. Rookie Russ Moran led after the first 2 days with a crankbait and a jighead worm fished on light line. In the finals, Angler of the Year points leader Dan Moorhead took an early lead. Fishing a crankbait within sight of the launch, Moorhead caught 16 keepers the first day for 13 pounds, 13 ounces.
Fish on.
Fish, Roy.
Good fish, too.
Washburn, Missouri's Randall Hudson kept close with a jerkbait and a jighead worm and only trailed Moorhead by 9 ounces. But Dan fished with king-size confidence on day 4 and ended up winning by almost 9 pounds. He captured the $200,000 first-place check and the big lead in the Angler of the Year race. Hudson was runner-up for the second straight year, and Moran finished third. Stop 5 for the FLW Tour, Kentucky and Barkley Lakes, the first of back-to-back events on the Tennessee River system, with water levels about as high as you'll see.
Right now, if you can't get between the outside brush and the bank, you're going to be having a little trouble catching a fish.
But surprisingly, the most successful anglers found their bites in deeper water. Second-year pro Steve Kennedy was Carolina rigging his way to the day 3 lead, and veteran Davey Height was right behind. Also Carolina rigging on the outside of submerged brush.
That's the kind we like to call with.
Day 4 was a 2-man race for the title. While Height caught well over 15 pounds, Kennedy was unstoppable, adding an amazing 21 pounds, 13 ounces to his total weight.
Woo!
When Height weighed his final fish, Kennedy had the tournament won with over 9.5 pounds of fish stilled away. Alabama's Lake Wheeler was the site of the last regular season event on tour, the Rich Forest Wood Open. In the Land O'Lakes Angler of the Year race, leader Dan Moorhead caught 2 limits and held off a challenge to lock up the title, his first. Chevy Pro Tommy Biffle had over 38 pounds the first 2 days, almost 7 pounds better than number 2 Timmy Horton. They were joined in the finals by California's Aaron Martins, who was second the last time the FLW visited Wheeler. With a hot day 3, he vaulted to the top of the leaderboard and then got passed by the local favorite Horton, fishing Decatur Flats with tons of confidence. When Horton took off on day 4 under the watchful gaze of Tony the Tiger, he knew several other finalists were well within striking distance of his lead. But foremost among his challengers was Martins, who was busy where no other finalists were fishing. His best fish came when barge traffic created waves near his spot. He landed his best 3 keepers on consecutive casts. Meanwhile, Horton rode an early spurt for his best fish.
There he is. Oh, that's a good one too.
But at 9:45, Horton had caught his last keeper. Martins had a better stringer than Horton, but was it enough to overcome the local favorite's lead?
He has 2 fish that weigh 2 pounds, 12 ounces. Aaron Martins is their champion.
This week's Ask a Pro question comes from Joe Jansen of Plano, Texas. How can I catch fish in the intense summer heat? Well, Joe, we found Ranger Pro George Cochran on a very hot day, and here's your answer.
Joe, my favorite technique and favorite lures in real hot weather are crankbaits. And the reason why is the fish, when real hot weather, they get kind of sluggish and they don't get in a chasing mood. So a lot of times what I do, I use crankbaits and I'm always bumping the cover and get that reaction bite. Some of my favorite lures, let me show you, is like this Series 1 crankbait, but if you notice it has the square shallow bill and it enables me to throw past the cover and reel the bait through the cover, bumping the cover, and when it hits the cover, it darts a lot, and that gives me that reaction bite. If you'll try this technique, I promise, Joe, you'll catch a lot more fish next summer.
Coming up on FLW Outdoors, more with Hank Parker, this time with Dan Moorhead, 2003 Land O'Lakes Angler of the Year. Nobody hotter than Dan this year.
But first, it's time for class to begin. Fishing 101, our professor of the Carolina rig. Here's Terry Seagraves from Kissimmee, Florida.
Stay in contact with that bottom, and if you see right now I'm pulling that bait through, and you don't use it with your reel, you do it with your rod, and when you come back to take up that slack, you take it up with your reel, but at the same time when you're doing that, you don't get any slack in that line, because when you stop that you might get a bite. But if you look what I'm doing, I'm almost keeping a half moon in that line, and if something touches that, makes a difference.
And the hook set is a little different on a Carolina rig.
A little bit, because you do have a leader out there. You're not really directly in contact with the bait. You got a 1 to 3 foot leader, so you got to kind of calculate that a little bit. And a lot of what you do there is make sure you get that line as good and tight, and a good 7 foot rod or 7.5 foot rod makes a difference. You take up that slack, and that's what makes a difference for sure.
I've never thought about the money, but this is one time, I'll have to say, it's been in the back of my mind. I'm ready to get this tournament underway.
Enough warm-up laps, you ready for the green flag. You're the #1 seed. When people in the media put you as one of the favorites, does that make you fish any different? Does that put pressure on you, or does that make you more confident, or have any effect at all?
Well, it's going back to that deal we were talking about earlier. You got to fish this tournament different. This isn't a qualifying points type of deal. You know, it's a championship. You're going for the win. Who cares who comes in second? It doesn't count. And also with the format, I mean, I love the bracketed format, but with this particular format, I think that you can't hold back. I mean, you can't save fish like sometimes we do. When you're fishing 1 against 1, anything can happen. He can bust loose and catch a 15-pound bag, and there you are with 10 pounds saving fish, and you're at home.
Dan, have you followed now? You know in your bracket who you're going to be fishing against?
Yeah, the first 2 days of the tournament, I'll be fishing against Alvin Shaw, the Kellogg's pro.
Now, how does that stack up? How you feel about that?
Makes no difference to me either way.
You know anything about his style of fishing?
No. He's a good fisherman. I've known Alvin for a while. We have fished around each other sometimes, you know. I mean, he's a good guy and you know, good fisherman. Other than that, I mean, I'm fishing against the fish. I'm not fishing against Alvin. I hadn't even really let that play into my thinking. One of the mottos that I've lived by this year is, you know, believe it, achieve it, doubt it, do without it.
Yeah, I saw that on the dash of your boat when we were riding down.
You gotta, I don't know, I've just always felt like I've got a circle drawn on the bow of the boat, and when you stand in that circle, all you can control is what goes on right here and right now. I can't control what Alvin does. It makes no difference to me. I can control what I do. So I just don't even think about it. I'm gonna fish against the fish. I'm gonna fish to win, and if I do that, it doesn't make any difference what Alvin does.
So, what does it feel like to win Angler of the Year?
It's pretty special, you know, and be on the Kellogg's box, and then the recognition from you know, the fellow peers, and also the sponsors and the fans. I never realized how many people really paid attention to fishing. I mean, I know a bunch do, but you know, we've got that big race going on here in Richmond this weekend, and our motel is just full of people, obviously from everywhere, and
people knew who you
people knew who I was, and it was really kind of neat.
That is awesome. Well, more people know who you are when they set your box on the table every morning and have breakfast, and they're going to be looking at you every day.
I called that lady up at Kellogg's because I've got several sponsors and friends and family, and everybody wants a copy of the box. And I ordered 4 cases of cornflakes, and I told her, she said, "Is there anything else?" I said, "Yeah, I guess I need a gallon of milk."
Here you are in a championship tournament. Most people would say, "Hey, I'm going to fish my strength." Spinning rod and a little slider head and a little rubber worm, is that your strength?
No, I made that same speech before I left home about how I was going to fish my strengths, and you know, I'm pitching and flipping and whatnot. That's how I got to Angler of the Year. But man, I've been here for a week, and I can't catch them doing it. You know, fishing's very tough. I think catching a limit is going to be really critical just to make the bracket formation, and I'm actually catching some big fish on this.
Well, I think that's good, and I won't say it in front of Dan here. I'll cover his ears, but that's what made him Angler of the Year, being versatile. So now you're versatile enough that you're going to leave your strength and go to what you have to do to catch them. So it's going to be interesting, and we're going to be watching. Hey, coming up next, we're going to be fishing with Chevy Pro Kevin Van Dam.
FLW Outdoors is presented by Faded Glory, by Energizer, batteries and flashlights, the power to keep going and going, by Pedigree, healthy, happy dog for life, and by Yamaha Outboards.
And this is a man that needs no introduction. All right, he has the limit here today.
Hey, today we're going to be talking with Kevin Van Dam and seeing what his strategies are going to be for this $500,000 Jacobs Cup tournament. Out of all the fishermen out here, Kevin just intrigues me. The method that he uses, the speed that he fishes, it's going to be fascinating. Now, everybody tells me, Kevin, this is going to be a tournament you have to slow down the fish. Is that going to be a strategy for you, or is it going to be different?
The thing that I've learned about fishing these tidal rivers is, yeah, you can't fish extremely fast when you get in the areas where they're at. Now, when the tide is at a certain level, I'm going to be covering water real well. But when I come to a good target, and you know, I mean, when I'm talking about the cypress trees and the lay down logs and stuff, it's very important to be real efficient. I'm going to make multiple casts, and I think casting accuracy is probably the #1 thing that'll help me here, because I mean, if you're off 6 inches on a lot of those targets, it's the difference between getting a bite and not when you're spinner baiting them and throwing a crankbait and stuff like that. Appomattox is clear yesterday. Oh, was it? I wish it was dirty. That's how I catch them in there good when it's like that. I caught them in there 10 years ago in a tournament. I went in there the first day that I got here. First fish I caught was a 6. And I'm going to do a little different thinking, is I'm going to target bigger fish, and I'm going to do it with bigger baits. You know, most of the people that fish here fish small stuff, little bitty spinner baits, little crankbaits, and things like that. And I've had some pretty good success kind of doing the opposite. I tried to limit myself to having everything within about 15 minutes of itself, you know, so that I got a lot of places that I can hit, a lot of areas that I can hit fairly close together. And the other thing is I'm not seeing anybody in practice. I mean, I'm not seeing
That make you nervous, or you like that?
You know, maybe I'm missing something, but I've got what I call a 4-day strategy going. I don't think there's one spot on this river that you can win this event from, one little spot. And I've got a lot of different areas, and I've got it in my own mind figured for different tides and things like that. And I know that it's going to be important to catch those better stringers, especially on the last day. And boy, if I can just get there, I am going to take the big chance and go for the giant.
Is that not pretty risky with the bracket format? Because if you don't advance, then you're not going to be there. I mean, you feel okay about.
I got to fish my style and what I think. The worst thing that I've learned that I can do is fish a way that I'm not comfortable with. And I got to fish my strength. And I've done quite a few tournaments in the past, and I've learned a lot of hard lessons from them. And I'm just not going to get out of my zone.
You only took like 2.5 days to practice, and that is pretty skinny practice for this kind of water. Why only 2 or 3 days?
Well, it's just the way that I do it. It's different than any other tournament because there's no off limits. And if I would be here for a week or 10 days or 2 weeks like a lot of the guys, I mean, I'd really be burned out. The way that I like to practice is I want to cover a lot of water, and I want to see a lot of different areas and see things at different tides. And just really get comfortable or really try to work them thoroughly during the tournament. And what happened a week ago isn't the same, next week. I'm really banking on the big bite here. And I know on that final day that there's such good class of anglers here that somebody is going to catch, 11 or 12 pounds. And I feel like, I really need to swing for the fence if I make it that far and go for that real big sack. I've caught some big stringers here in the past. I've caught some big stringers in practice already this week, and it's just being able to duplicate that. I'm going to watch the tides real close. I've got a game plan, and I'm going to fish my style. I think this is a perfect scenario for run and gun style fishing. Running the tide and hitting a lot of spots, but I may fish fast, but when I get there, I'm going to fish them very thorough, where I think there's a fish, and then I'm going to move on to another spot. I'm going to spend my time in what I call quality water and try to make as many good casts in that quality water as I can each day, all day long. And, if I can get them in the boat and be consistent, I'm going to have a shot at it.
Here's an update from the RCL Walleye League. In the Michigan division, the appropriately named John Gilman is your winner out of Freeland, Michigan, with a 2-day catch of 49 pounds, 1 ounce. Here's an update on the recent action in the BFL. First from the Buckeye division on the Ohio River, Dan Moran is your champion out of London, Ohio. And from the Michigan division on the Grand River, Ed Rogers Jr. is your most recent champion. For all the latest information on all of the action in the BFL, log on to FLWOutdoors.com. Welcome back to FLW Outdoors. We are inside the Richmond Convention Center, and this is the Outdoor Show. We're right next to the weigh-in stage, and we're also fast-forwarding to day one of the FLW Tour Championship.
Yeah, in fact, the weigh-in has started, and we've got some bonus coverage of the preview show with Hank Parker. You're going to hear from Kevin Van Dam, Clark Wendlandt, and Dan Moorhead, and see how they fished on day one. So to the weigh-in, and here's Hank Parker. Hank?
Hey, thanks, guys. Well, I tell you, practice is over. It's been a tough day on the James River. We're going to see how these guys fared. So let's go to the stage and watch for Charlie Evans to do the weigh-in.
Here's fish number 4. And Clark Wendlandt's reaching for his 5 bass limit, and he has it. 5 fish here. All 5 of these alive. His total weight for today, 7 pounds, 5 ounces. 7.5 for Clark Wendlandt.
Well, we're with Clark Wendlandt. Clark, you had a great day out there today, a limit of fish. That's pretty awesome.
Oh, it is awesome. I'll tell you what, it's tough out there today with the tide. The tides are really higher than they're supposed to be, and there's so much cover to fish. It spreads out the fish, and they're just hard to catch.
Well, I know that when we practiced, you kept talking about you had one little confidence area, but you really didn't know for sure how much was there. You'd gone in and caught a few fish and got out of the area.
Right.
So it must have panned out pretty good for you.
It really panned out great. You know, there's, I think I could catch a lot of big fish on low tide, and the tides are going to get a little better for me every day. It'll be lower down there longer every day, and so I'm just looking forward to the future. You know, the next few days, only time will tell, but I think it could be good.
Well, you got a real good lead over David going into this last day. David Walker, he only had, what, 15 ounces today?
He only had 1 fish, but, you know, in this deal, these guys are the best 48, and I think anybody can catch a big string. So I feel like I got to go out and still catch some fish.
Well, I know you got a little breathing room there, and I know you're going to go back and do the exact same thing tomorrow, right?
I look forward to doing the exact same thing.
Right. Clark, good luck to you, buddy. Clark Wendlandt. Now let's go back on the stage with Charlie Evans.
Here comes Dan Moorhead. Pull him out, Dan. Let's have a look at what you've got in there today. Dan Moorhead, our most consistent angler all year long, won the Walmart Open, $200,000 there. And again, our Land O'Lakes Angler of the Year won $25,000 and a Ranger bow with an EVINRUDE outboard. And today he's got 1 fish that weighs 1 pound, 3 ounces, 1.3.
Hey, we're here with Land O'Lakes Angler of the Year, Dan Moorhead. Dan, tough day out there today, buddy.
It was. I'm not going to make any excuses. Everybody's going to say the same thing. We had that high northeast wind that held the water in. I'm sure the full moon didn't help anything. I really never had any outgoing tide. The low today was higher than the highs have been, so I just didn't adjust. You know, like I told you before, I had all my eggs in one basket, and I made a long run. I just never figured them out. So tomorrow I've got to drop back, punt, do something a little different.
What could you do? I mean, here you are, you're fishing the outgoing tide, and that's critical, and then all of a sudden you have a full moon and a real strong northeast wind blows all the water in. You don't have an outgoing tide. It's fuller than it's been all during practice. What do you do?
Well, I've heard rumor, definitely I'm going to study the Weather Channel. I've heard rumor this wind's going to switch out of the west. If it does that, that'll blow the water out. And if it does, I'm going to have more outgoing tide than I should have. And I think that will definitely help a lot. What I've found all week long is even on the high tide, a lot of these fish didn't move with the water. They stayed where they've been all the time. They just didn't bite. You know, you have to really finesse them. So I believe the fish are probably still there, but everything I've been fishing is underwater. So I can't really see it. And that's made it tough. But if they don't, I'm going to pick up a flipping rod, and I'm going to move up with the water if it's high again. You know, some of the talk I've heard behind me, a lot of the people are catching them flipping up real shallow. The fish move with the water.
So you're 6 pounds behind, and you got to make a swing for the fence to try to hit a home run.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I was going to do this regardless if I was in the lead or not. You know, you can't take a chance. I don't like being in the hole, but still, you know, I'm going to, you know, try to catch some fish on my outgoing tide, and then pick up a flipping rod and try to get a quality bite. And, you know, I don't feel like I'm out of it yet.
I guarantee you he's not out of it. Dan Moorhead. We'll go now back to the weigh-in with Charlie Evans.
Let's see what you've got in the bag there, Kevin. Kevin Van Dam, he's got 1 in the bag, 1 fish, and we'll weigh it in, and it weighs in at 1 pound, 1 ounce, 1.1.
Hey, we're here with Kevin Van Dam. Kevin, pretty tough day out there. Terry Bolton caught a pretty good stringer, and here you are a little bit in the hole.
Yeah, it was
it was tough. You know, the tide and that, it just really, it really blew me away. I didn't expect it to be that bad and really mess the water up like that. So I'm going to have to go out and come up with a new game plan. We'll see what the conditions are in the morning and go from there.
Well, with the full moon and the northeast wind blowing in, when you've practiced here, have you ever fished with the water as high as it was today?
I've never seen it. You know, when we got to the ramp this morning, the water was over the docks there, and I thought, wow. But it was going out. It was going out pretty quick, and I thought, well, it might still be all right down there where I'm fishing, so I had to run down there and try it, and it was just a mess when I got there. And by the time that I came back, the water was already coming back in and some of the other areas up the river. So I just really zigged when I should have zagged and was in the wrong place at the right time. So,
well, predictions are the weather conditions are going to be basically the same for tomorrow. So now what do you do?
Well, I'm gonna make a long run up the Chickahominy River and fish up there. I love to throw a spinnerbait and a buzzbait over those pads when they're flooded, and there's a lot of good fish up there. And you know, for these conditions, I think that's my best chance.
Well, I tell you, you're no stranger to being behind, and you're no stranger to making a comeback. If anybody can do it, I know you can.
We're going to give it a whirl. We'll see what happens.
That's great. Kevin Van Dam, let's go back now to the stage and Charlie Evans.
Mary Parnell's leading for Snickers Big Bass at 4-5. What do you think?
I have no idea. It's pretty close.
All right. I apologize for not weighing it early. Again, $1,000 from Snickers for the biggest bass caught on either day one or day two by either pro or co-angler. And I'm glad you brought it back up to weigh because this fish weighs in at 4 pounds, 11 ounces, a new Snickers Big Bass. That's our Snickers Big Bass right there, 4 pounds, 11 ounces. Could be worth $1,000 from Snickers. Snickers will also pay an additional $5,000 for the largest one caught all year long.
FLW Outdoors is brought to you by Castrol, the only motor oil that provides maximum protection. Castrol GTX, drive hard. By Land O'Lakes, where simple goodness begins. By EVINRUDE, leaner, meaner, cleaner. And by Walmart, always low prices, always. Welcome back to FLW Outdoors. Day one is done. We've got some surprises on either end of the spectrum, the high side and the low side. Rob Kilby and Chad Skank, the only anglers to clear the 11-pound mark, and they're a good 2 pounds away from the next angler, so they've got a little bit of a cushion there. That's good. But on the low side, we've got some surprises as well.
Well, both ways. First of all, Rob and Chad, that is just incredible that they were able to break that 11-pound mark today. The tide is extremely high because of the full moon, and we had a real strong northeast wind. They had more water to deal with than what they've had their whole practice, so it's really remarkable they were able to catch that kind of string.
Hank, the tide should be lower tomorrow. Will that improve the bite a lot?
I think it'll make a huge difference, and it'll actually be a great day if the water will turn around and start out of here because it'll have more current and a lot less water to deal with. And the fish didn't bite today, so they'll kind of be biting really, really good tomorrow.
You've won a big event here. You won one of your Bassmasters Classic on the James River. What is it going to take for someone to win this thing?
Well, I think perseveres the whole thing of this river. Rick Clun said today that his MO on this body of water is he struggles, and then has a big day. And that can happen here, and I think that's what happened when I won the tournament, and I think you'll see that happen tomorrow. Some guys that are really struggling, guys that caught them today may not catch them tomorrow, and then the guys that are really struggling may come in with a real good load of fish tomorrow.
There are some big-name anglers who are hoping that they will not struggle tomorrow. Guys like Kevin Van Dam and Dan Moorhead, they struggled on day one, just one fish each.
I knew Dan was struggling somewhat. I could just tell by our practice together. But Kevin, I really thought Kevin would catch a big bag of fish today. So I know he's disappointed, and he's one of those guys, if this wind will turn around and blow the water out, may come in with a 12, 13-pound bag.
We had an opportunity to make our picks before the tournament began, so we will fearlessly keep with our predictions at least. Taylor, who's your pick?
Well, I picked John Cruz, and I tried to defy convention because usually local guys don't fare well on their home body of water, but I thought maybe Cruz would with these abnormal tides. I guess I'm lucky so far he's got an 8-ounce advantage over Rick Clun. That's a tough guy to beat.
Hank, how about
yours?
I
thought Paulie Lice would do well. He's been here before, and he's got a lot of experience. He's a great crankbait fisherman, and I really felt like crankbait might be the bait, so I picked Paulie Lice.
All right, my guy was Kevin Van Dam. Not much of a stretch, but he's going to need a big day two to overcome his deficit in round one. Well, we will come back next week with the champion of the 2003 FLW Tour, $500,000. We'll find out who wins next week on FLW Outdoors.